You can buy this silk kimono right now. There is one, there is only one, and there will only ever be one. This is made from a handloomed sari from Benares, which is the best place to buy your saris in India. It is 100% silk. It's fully lined with 100% silk as well. It's absolutely gorgeous. I'm going to show you the whole garment from top to bottom in a minute. Come along and buy it. There's only one, and that's it. There are no more. So if you love it, come and get it. Let's have a look at the garment. Here it is. Isn't she absolutely gorgeous? I've got the sash going around the waist there. This is made from the border of the sari. So the anatomy of the sari reads all the way through this. I've used the border to create a sash. I've used the border along the sleeves here, and we'll have a look at that when it's sort of out and flaring, and also down to the pallu. So this is the highly decorative end of a sari. I've got another sari here, I'll show you. They are long, but at the end of a sari you have this, which is called the pallu, and that's the extremely decorated. It's usually more decorated than the rest of the sari. It's in a brocade, so this is Zari work with some different coloured threads there, and it's sort of, this is the part, so the sari wraps around you, it comes up over the shoulder, and I think we all can imagine this. This is what you think of when you think of a sari, and it sits over the shoulder like that. And this is where the concept of me making kimono out of saris comes from. I was sat in New Delhi and a lady walked past in a lovely part of town, and she had her sari and it was sitting down, a bit down her arm like this, with the pallu there, and it was swinging like this. And of course I am Mr. Kimono. I'm constantly thinking about kimonos. I research kimonos, I make kimonos, and the first thing I saw was a kimono sleeve as she walked past like this. And that's then got into my head. I couldn't stop thinking about it, and that's why I end up making things like this. I've got quite a few of them. This is the most beautiful iteration I've ever made. It's heartbreaking how wonderful this one is. So I'm using the anatomy of a sari and injecting it into the anatomy of the kimono to make a truly beautiful robe. This absolutely stunning pure silk robe. I'm going to unsash it so we can have a look inside and look at the lining, and then I'm going to put it up onto a big, I've got a coat hanger that telescopes and can hold a kimono out like this, so we can really see the fabric and you can see the magic of this Tussar silk. It's absolutely gorgeous. So it's made from a Benares Saree, so a sari that's been woven, hand loomed in Varanasi, and it's got Zari work, which means it's got silver thread covered in silver woven through it. When I first got it, I thought that it was navy, but what's happened is it's like shiny navy thread, but it's actually a navy thread right next to a silver thread. So it looks as if the navy thread is shiny itself. It's fascinating. It's a beautiful textile just by itself. It's absolutely wonderful. And when it came as a sari, it was gorgeous. It is light as a feather. I'm going to show you the lining in a minute once we open up the kimono. I used I'll show you a bit here so you can see. So it's a white silk page. I'll go into why I used that in a minute, but it's, the whole garment is light as a feather, and I chose the lining for that reason as well, because this was so fine when I bought the sari. You needed something just as fine. You don't want to weigh it all down. I wanted to keep that air going through it. It's Tussar silk, and when I first bought it I thought it was more blue, but then once I lined it, it went the color of celadon. Once I put the white lining underneath it, it was a real transformation. It was odd. I didn't expect that, and I expect that's because it's made of Tussar silk, so that's wild silk, and wild silk has a sort of golden aura. It has a golden glow to it. Even once it's dyed, there's still a sort of, you can feel gold, which is why if I put the other silk underneath it, I can understand that it might have turned a bit green. but not green. It's celadon green, the color of the sky after it's rained. If that's not too poetic, but that's the color you see here. And because the Tussar silk is so thin, it's so fine, and the lining is as well, it creates this translucent, like it's being glazed feeling that you can, it sort of moves above the lining, and you can just see that it looks a bit like it's been glazed in a Tang pottery or something like that. Absolutely fantastic. And it's a gorgeous, we're going to look at the whole thing, so I'll explain the anatomy first. So we've got obviously beautiful kimono sleeves. The kimono sleeves fall 1 meter from the wrist, which is 39 inches. So they fall down from the wrist. In fact, if I hold it up to mine, you can see it's sort of down past my knee. So they're lovely long sleeves, and the end of the sleeve on the back, so the side that you'll see, the back of the sleeve is what you see. The sort of the front of the sleeve sits on the inside against the body. The back of the sleeve sits flat, and there I've used that palu that we talked about, so you can see it here. I'm going to show this one in detail, especially when it's up on a stand like this. You can really see why I do it, but how beautiful it is. But just for now, I'll show you just that richly decorated palu at the back there, with the borders coursing up over the wrist and back down. And then the border is also used down here along the hem. So instead of hemming it, I've bordered it. And that's so as you walk and you kick, there's really richly decorated material around the hem. And as you move, especially at the back, the Zari fibers, the Zari threads will catch the light and just give it a bit more sparkle and border the hem of the garment. The sash is also made out of the border, so that's got that richly decorated Zari work through it as well. And of course the whole thing is covered in these motifs of a tree of life motif. You can see it's a plant in full bloom as it goes around. Then also, I talked about the palu earlier with the fuchsia sari, and you can see it here. So the center of this palu is actually up here, and I used that to frame the face. So that goes around the back of the neck and down into the shoulders. So you've got this really highly decorated part here, but then the palu ends, it fades away. So then as you go into the rest of the garment, it blends in with the garment. It's just a little frame for around the décolletage in the back of the neck. Beautiful. And these long sleeves, you can see there, can you see? Yeah. It's coming down to, it's not far off. Obviously they don't touch the ground, but they fall all the way to your calves when you're wearing it. So this is the most gorgeous thing you could wear. It's going to feel gorgeous. I did try it on, and it does. I wore it for a second once I finished making it, and it is like you're wearing a cloud, but it's a cloud made of celadon glazed ceramics. It's absolutely wonderful. Isn't it absolutely beautiful? Let's have a look at the lining, and I'll explain why I lined it in the way I did, and I'm going to put it up on that stand so we can really see just how it moves once you infuse some air through the garment. It's so exciting. I'm so excited to show everyone. I haven't shown anyone this garment yet. Let's have a look at it without the sash. So here it is untied, just so you can see it as an open robe, and I can show you some of the lining as well now that the belt isn't on it. So we've seen it before. Here's the lovely collar and everything, and then when we open it up, this is, you can see the lining. And I talked about using a really fine silk, and the reason I used it, and I go on about it a lot, is because it's such, the shell, the actual outside material, this celadon tussar, is so fine and so light. I didn't want to burden it with a really heavy lining or something like something too heavy that then brings the whole fabric down. I wanted this feeling of air to be flowing through it the whole time. And so I chose this habitai, China silk. It's as fine as you can get. It's actually technically a silk page, and is often used for painting on silk because it's just straight fibers against each other. There's no sort of satin weave or anything, but it's still completely like a silk. It's very slippery, so you can slip it over something if you're wearing a cotton underneath this or against your skin. It's going to feel gorgeous, but it's not too heavy, and it just has the lightest weight. So this is the finest silk I could possibly find to line it, and I'll show you in a minute up on the big kimono stand so we can have a look at it like this, and that's where you really see how the air moves through it and that diaphanous quality of the gown. But this is showing you why we chose to do it. So can you see? Yeah, you can. This is how fine it is. See, you can see all the, these are called buta. I think that means coin, and it's the motifs. So you can see the motifs coming through on the other side. On the other side, the way a sari is made is this is put onto a loom, and then the excess thread, so all this Zari work and the navy blue, that dark, I'm calling it navy blue, it's like a blue-grey thread, is woven in, and then underneath it they cut, someone sits there and then cuts around each one of these, so there isn't sort of 3 layers of thread going through. It would be extremely thick cloth. It would be like a brocade in that case, but this one is cut around, and so that means that there's little threads there, and they would sort of tickle you if you wore it without a lining in it. But I just didn't want to add weight, so it was fantastic. When I bought the lining material, I picked it up, and it was like air. It doesn't have weight to the bolt of cloth. It's that fine. It was absolutely amazing. I was so happy with the way it came together. Fantastic. So I'm going to put it up onto the my big kimono coat hanger so we can see it in full profile like this. But there's your last look, just as this. By the way, I also think this is a great way to wear the robe. If you have a gorgeous brooch or something, you can just fasten it down here with a nice pin. It's a great way to style it. It looks fantastic that way. And of course, wearing it as an open robe, this is how I would wear them around the house. So in the old style of the banyan, I wear them over my house clothes, and just as another layer to keep me either warm or to sort of cool me down, but also because I just love wearing kimono and kimono style garments, and it fits into my life wearing them open like this. So you can wear this with a gorgeous outfit underneath. It would look absolutely stunning. Something in a fuchsia against that tone as well would look incredible. You can see how they bring each other out. Isn't it gorgeous? Absolutely fantastic. And then you've got the sash, so you can still wear that sort of over your arms, if you think of it like this, just as a sort of, I want to say an ornament. It's not jewellery, is it? But it's another little ornament that can just sift and give you line and give the eye something to follow. That's a little styling tip for me. That's what I draw when I do my illustrations of people wearing kimono like this. Absolutely fabulous. Let's get it up onto that coat hanger. So I thought I'd show it to you open so you can see the full majesty of the Zari work and this Tussar silk on the kimono. So this is the front, and actually if I open it up you can see there the lining, and if you can look through as well, we've got a bit of light coming through behind the curtain. You can see just how light this garment is. Can you see? There you go. You can see the light coming through there. So it shows you just how delicate and fine. Look at that. That's why I used such a fine silk, this really thin silk, to line it. So it didn't add weight to it. It just added what you needed underneath to protect you from the cut work around the buta. I'll turn it around as well. You can see here my concept coming to life. It's having that palu, the end of the sari. Here it is on an actual fuchsia sari as well, that's worn over the shoulder when someone wears one. And this part, the rich embroidered palu, falls over the back like this. That day the lady was wearing it and had fallen down over like this, over her sleeve. Do you see how that's like a kimono sleeve? And you see all this beautiful Zari work. And I couldn't get it out of my head. And so that's why I ended up making them. And then if I get out of the way, you can see the palu there. So that falls down here. And when you're wearing a kimono, the back of the sleeve, this part here, sort of sits on you. This is a men's yukata, so it's got a short sleeve. But if this was longer, it sits down on you and down there. And you see this part the most, the back of the sleeve. I'm going to lift the whole thing up in front of me. It's like holding a sail of a ship, the way that it moves. Look at that. Absolutely gorgeous. Isn't it wonderful? See that? The lightness of it? Get it under the right lamp. There we go. And you can see there's that rich palu decoration. And it's split on either side. And then of course it's cut from the palu. So this is the actual sari. If you, this part, this two sleeves, you can see they run right to the border. And so then the border travels up over your arm and down the front. So over your wrist, the border will sit over here, which is completely done in the Zari work as well. Beautiful borders, look at that. With this buta just traveling over the rest of it. Gorgeous. Look at that with that light coming down on it. It's like another thing. Come along and buy it. There's only one and that's it. There are no more. So if you love it, come and get it.